Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Rachel Schrader. I'm the Vice President of Clinical Care and Education here at PPMD. And we're just really happy to have some awesome panelists with us this afternoon to talk through a really interesting topic, and that is taking Duchenne to college and navigating on-campus living and commutes for people with Duchenne. I know that that can be a tricky thing, and there's not a great handbook written on how to navigate college campuses for people living with Duchenne. So we've got some people on the phone who have already done it to answer your questions. So essentially what we'll do today during the hour, I'm going to go around and introduce all of our panelists and have them share a little bit about themselves and who they are, and then we'll open it up to conversations for everybody that's on the phone. On the bottom of your screen, there's a chat function. You can submit your questions to the panelists through that chat function. So if you come up with a question based on what they share, or if you've got some other questions as you think about yourself or your son planning for college, drop it in there and we'll get through as many of those questions as we can. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start by hearing a little bit from Dr. Mena Scavina, who is a neurologist as well as the PPMD Care Team's Certified Duchenne Care Center Clinical Advisor. Dr. Scavina?
Hello. Thank you all for coming and joining in today. This is a wonderful opportunity. I may know some of you. I am a neurologist at Nemours DuPont Hospital for Children in Wilmington, Delaware. I've been here about 26 years between my time here as an attending and my training. And I've recently joined PPMD to work on some wonderful projects like this and to work with clinics. I have worked with a number of families over the years in terms of trying to get to the college of their choice. And I've seen what works, what doesn't work. So I think this is a very useful webinar to have. I think many people as freshmen, sophomore, juniors, even seniors want this no matter what. And then having some extra things to think about makes it a little bit sometimes more challenging. So speaking to people that have gone through the process, talking to some of us may be helpful. So I hope today is very helpful for you and happy to answer any questions you may have. I'd like to thank Kevin Bors and his mother, Gloria, who I know who were willing to join in today. And Kevin and his brother attended Princeton University and his younger brother Villanova. And I take it as a personal pride. I tell so many families because I think it is a really, first of all, I think getting into those schools in the first place, living on campus and just in any capacity. And so I'm so proud of them. And I thought they'd be a great resource to have here today. So welcome to everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Scavina. Next, we're going to hear a little bit from Adith Thummalapalli.
Hi, everyone. My name is Adith Thummalapalli. I am a recent graduate of the University of Maryland, College Park. I graduated last May with my bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. And I lived on campus all 4 years. I live about 2 hours away. Currently on the eastern shore of Maryland. So I stayed on campus, and during my time at University of Maryland, I was heavily involved with disability rights groups and disability advisory committees on campus. I still remain involved as an alumni, and I'm also a member of the PPMD Adult Advisory Committee, the PAC. And so I continue my disability advocacy work through those organizations. And it's nice to be here, and I look forward to answering whatever questions you may have.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Adith. I've got lots of questions for you when we open it up. I think that you'll have some really great insight for us. All right, next up we have Gloria and Kevin Bors. Gloria and Kevin, can you share a little bit with us about, Kevin, your experience, and then Gloria, your experience too as a mom of someone with Duchenne who has lived on campus?
Sure. I have 3 sons with Duchenne, and they went to college. I think Kevin graduated in 2013, Andrew in 2011, and Jonathan in 2016. And I had a lot of questions when we started. A lot of them have been answered. And we've had various scenarios that were challenges, but they were all doable. They were very manageable. One thing that helped was Princeton is only about 50 minutes from our home, and Villanova is only about 25 minutes from home. So I will have things to share with you, how to get ready, what kind of things to look for and whatnot. Thank you.
Kevin, do you want to add anything?
Well, like you said, I graduated from Princeton in 2013, and yeah, I lived on campus all 4 years, and I even had a couple internships over the summer where I stayed there. So yeah, about it.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm sure we'll have some great questions for you too.
Yeah, Kevin graduated with electrical engineering, computer science. That's his background.
Super smart. We've got some super smart guys on the phone today. All right. Next up, we're going to hear from Maria McDonnell.
Hi. I have myself muted, and if my dogs bark, I apologize. They're so loud. So I'm coming to this webinar. I kind of have three different perspectives on this topic. First of all, I am a mother of my youngest son, Aiden, has Duchenne, and he is in his third year of college right now. He chose to commute to college. He is a biopsychology major, and he's specializing in animal behavior because he's always been an animal lover. But like I said, he chose to live at home, and I'm really interested hearing the perspective of some of these other young men who lived on campus. But like I said, he's in his third year, and he's doing just really well in college, loves it so much. I'm also a college instructor. I teach at the school where my kids go because free tuition. But I've been, you can't turn that down. You know, I've been teaching English there for 16 years, and I teach first year students. And so I had the perspective of, you know, what professors see the first semester, second semester of school. And I teach at a really small liberal arts college with it, which I think is a really different experience from what Adith and Kevin had at larger schools. And then just this past semester, for the first time, I had a student in my class who had Duchenne, which I thought was really cool. I know his mom. And so I was like, well, this is great. I have the son, I have the experience, you know, from the college side of it. And now I actually had a student in my class with Duchenne. And I asked him yesterday, you know, I was like, I'm doing this webinar. Is there anything, you know, you want to tell me or share? And he just said, to be sure, I tell everybody that they can absolutely do it, to not be afraid. If he said he was really nervous and he did it, and anybody can do it. So that's a little about me.
I love that. And that's the whole point of our gathering today, right? Is to make sure that families feel empowered and educated and have the resources available to them so that they can make what can be a really hard choice to make, even for somebody without Duchenne. I remember moving off to college my freshman year myself, and that's a huge adjustment. And there's just so many additional factors to really contribute. So I think with that, now that we've all had a chance to get to know each other, let's dive into some questions. I wanted to start with Adith. You shared a little bit about your involvement with the disability rights group on campus. And I think that that's such a cool perspective to have, because not only were you relying upon the services, but you were kind of taking control of some of those you know, policies and things. So maybe you could just share a little bit more about your role in those disability rights groups on campus, and how that affected your own experience living on campus.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. So when I first attended, when I first went on a tour of University of Maryland, I think my sophomore year in high school, you know, it's a pretty large campus. And while I was there, I noticed some you know, concerns in terms of like the physical accessibility of campus. And once I started there as a student, you know, the way that things are organized at the University of Maryland is that there's no centralized like accessibility or disability service office. There's sections within each campus department. So under resident life, there's a group that handles you know, disability services. In terms of academic accommodations, there's a different group you go to. Transportation accommodations, like getting parking, accessible parking spots, things like that, there's another office that you go to. And so, I noticed that this was really disjointed, sort of segmented. And, I wondered, why wasn't there a centralized office? And my junior year of college, I ran into a situation where I was unable to get to my classes for 2 weeks because of an elevator malfunction. And that prompted me to sort of write a report outlining all of the concerns that I had noticed, things that like spanning back from my freshman year. And that sort of got the attention of the Office of the President and this commission called the President's Commission on Disability Issues. And that group, it's a group of volunteers that of faculty, staff, alumni, students, graduate and undergraduate, just many stakeholders on the campus with, interests in disability justice and disability rights work. So I got involved with that group, and through that, one of the biggest pushes we're trying to make right now is to have a centralized office where students, staff, faculty, visitors, whoever can go to that office and then be directed where they need to go for whatever supports related to their disability, whether that be academic, housing, visitor services on campus, event services, whatever. So that group right now, and me as part of that group, we're working on sort of establishing that office. And right now we're in the process of hiring a full-time ADA coordinator as part of that office. So, I've been involved with that group for a while now. With that group, I also helped establish a related student group where students interested could join and, have their voices be heard as well. So that's a little bit about my involvement with that. And like I said earlier, I recently became a member of the PAC. Anyone in the PPMD community, of course, any guys with Duchenne, if you're out there listening, and if, you want to attend a PAC meeting, if you want to be part of that, I'm happy to talk about my experience with that more later, but I don't want to take up too much more time here. So, yep, that's my story.
You are a fantastic advocate. Oh my goodness. It makes so much sense that there would be a single touch point when you're going onto a campus. Yeah. When you have to navigate disability services. It's almost like Duchenne care, right? I mean, having coordinated care makes things easier and more effective. And I guess I'm kind of surprised that you didn't have a singular touch point. So maybe Maria, you could comment on kind of the structure at your school and how it's similar, how it's different. And then I think from there, I would love to hear a little bit from Gloria too on that same subject, just because you've had experience with a couple of different schools. So maybe Maria, you could share a little bit.
Well, like I said, my school is really small. We have about a 1,600 student population. And so we didn't really have a very great system in place. We had very few students who had disabilities. In fact, just in the past year, I've seen, I think, 3 other students on campus who are in wheelchairs or motorized scooters. And that's kind of a first. So when my son started in 2018, it was really difficult. I know every family has kind of different ways of throughout, public school, high school, elementary school, even some people have aides with their kids, like one-on-one, but we've always Aiden made it all the way through school without ever having an aide. It was just kind of intuitive. Like if he needed somebody to get his books out of his bag, whoever was sitting next to him would get his books out of his bag. So when he started college, we figured we'd just figure this out. But the very first week of orientation, the woman, and this is probably more of a personal thing than a policy thing, but the woman who was in charge of disability services and advocacy, quote unquote, at the time, called me into her office and said, why is he here for orientation without an aide? And I said, well, I'm in my office working. If he needs to go to the bathroom, I can help with that. But she's like, but what about elevators and doors? And I said, well, he's in a group of students. And she said, well, they shouldn't have to open doors for him. And I was like, I'm not sure what kind of world we live in where, your classmates can't just open a door or press an elevator button for you. But that was kind of my introduction to what disability standards were like at my college. And it was kind of shocking and disappointing. It's a little better now. Like I said, we have one student I know of who lives in the dorms, who has a disability. He has a service dog with him, which is really cool. My son also has a service dog. But I do know that he can transfer himself. I believe he has a CP. So he doesn't quite have, but I know that the student that I had in my class this semester who had Duchenne also lived on campus part of the first semester. So I think it's getting better, but like our dorms, not accessible, our buildings, it's a very old campus. And what you said, Adith, about missing classes because of the elevator, my son ran into the same problems, and it was his bio classes, which is, his major. The elevator in the science building would go out from time to time, and that just meant he couldn't go to class. And, it's hard to wrap your head around when you're an able-bodied student, is that, some technical malfunction can really impact your education that way. So I love what you're doing. And I think that our school is very slowly getting there as we have more diversity with students with disabilities in our population. But I think parents who are, whose kids haven't started school yet, I can only speak, from my perspective, but I think a lot of the bigger schools probably do have better systems in place, probably already have had many students come through who, need accessibility and technology. I'm losing words here, but need assistance with those things. And smaller schools, you might be sort of breaking the ground for them. And if you're willing to do that, I think that's a valuable service. But like I said, going from high school to college, even though Aiden commuted and he wasn't living on campus, it was still a completely different experience.
Well, and I think you make a really good point too, Maria. It might be tricky to find which campuses near you or campuses that you're even interested in are best suited with robust disability services. I know here in Ohio, we have Wright State University, which is outside of Dayton, and it's like the designated campus in Ohio for people that have physical disabilities, and it's incredibly accessible.
Wow.
So the team at PPMD is actually working to pull together a list of some of those campuses just as an additional resource for the community, because I think that those sometimes can be hidden little gems that if you don't know about it, you can't take advantage of it. And it might be a really great fit. I know University of Illinois is one that's got some really impressive accessibility and resources too. So, okay, I want to hear a little bit from you, Gloria, on this same topic. And then I think from there, we'll jump into the Q&As that we're getting through our chat function. So Gloria, maybe you could just tell us a little bit about how you accessed services at the two different schools and how they differed, how they were similar, and just kind of give us a little narrative around that.
Yes, they both have Office of Disability, and that was very helpful to have one centralized location. Princeton was great with money, with the housing, with the facilities. Villanova did not, and they, in fact, when Kevin was doing his internships 2 summers, the regular funding source, OVR, Office of Vocational Rehab, does not cover assistance for the summer. But then Princeton stepped in and said, well, we think this is part of the Princeton experience, so we'll cover your assistant needs for the summer. So that was really, really helpful. Villanova has very, very good Office of Disability. The guy in charge of it is called Gregory Hanna. He had worked with a young man in high school, and he followed him to college. And they loved him so much at Villanova, they hired him. The campus was better all the doors had those things you can hit to open the door, and it was in many ways easier to navigate than Princeton, which is very old, as you know. But as far as funding, they have none. They gave zero. They just don't have the money. They do have this organization called Level, where Greg recruits kids to come in if they're interested in helping somebody with disability. And so they can take notes for other people, they can be friends, they can do things with them. So that was really, really good. But both of the places, you know, once the oldest one went through, we knew it could work. And it is convenient that they're only about an hour to 30 minutes away, the campuses for us.
Great. Thank you so much, Gloria. It looks like you might have frozen for just a moment, but it looks like we've got you back. So I think next I would love to hear from Adith and from Kevin, just about your experience living on campus, you know, making friends, going to parties, getting to class, you know, how did you navigate getting an aide or a PCA? Just kind of, you know, what that looks like for guys who are listening in, thinking about, you know, what does this college experience potentially look like for me? So maybe Adith, you could start.
Yeah, sure. Just one quick thing on the note of funding. Yeah, the Office of Vocational Rehab, it's called different things in different states.
Yeah.
That's a great, you know, resource, of course. It's called Doors here in Maryland, and they helped, you know, pay some of my tuition, pay room and board, stuff like that. So that's definitely a resource you want to tap into as early as possible.
Yes.
Yeah. So in terms of my college experience, I'd say it was fairly, like I had a really great time going away to college. I think it really gave me a chance to grow as a person. And, you know, I lived in the dorms all 4 years. I was one of the accommodations that UMD was able to provide me was a single room, so just for myself, and it had an attached bathroom. And, you know, there was a bed for myself, and they provided a bed for the PCAs that I would have. I only had overnight care, so I would have someone come in around 8 or 9 in the night and then stay overnight. I would do my whole routine of, you know, showering, using the bathroom, all of that overnight. So before bed, and then they would stay until about 7 or 8 in the morning, and then they would leave. And pretty much during the day, I would be pretty self-reliant. You know, like Maria said, there's a lot of people out there just willing to help. Like if you need help opening a door, or if you, you know, people just do these things naturally, like holding the elevator, hitting an elevator button, in the dining halls. If I ever needed assistance, one of the dining hall workers would be more than happy to help me, you know, carry my tray to my table, whatever. And many times I would have, like, you know, classmates or friends who were more than willing to help. They didn't have to, but they were willing to. In terms of living on campus, I was able to live, you know, in the dorms that there were 2 dorms at University of Maryland that were, you know, pretty brand new. They were about 3 or 4 years old when I had gone there. And that's where all the, like the accessible rooms would be. So I got lucky with that. I was able to have my own room, an attached bathroom. In terms of making friends and stuff, pretty much how other people in college would. Like you would hang out with other people on your floor. The first week or 2 of college, there's a lot of social activities. Just, you know, go out, get involved with those. And, you know, at those events, I always tried to, I made it a personal goal to talk to at least 3 people at each of those events. So every time I'd go to a movie night or an arts and crafts activity, whatever, I would say, okay, now I'm going to try and make friends with 3 new people. And that was a really easy way for me to, find people I shared similar interests with, to find my friends. And I did the same thing for classes. Every class, I would try to make at least 3 new friends. And I would say I was pretty successful with that. It was a challenge I set for myself, and I did that. And in my experience, the faster you find a group of people that you're friends with, the group of people that you can hang out with, it becomes a lot easier to navigate things like social situations. It just adds another level of comfort. And, going away, like 2 hours away for school, I had to leave a couple of my high school friends behind. So, and there's tons of other people in that same boat. So, be willing to talk to people, be willing to, share your experience with people. And it's pretty easy to make friends. At least that's what I felt. So.
Yeah, before Kevin speaks, we had a completely different experience. My kids did not have any overnight eats. They left at 11, but they were there during the day in class. And I feel from what Maria was saying, I think it's nice to rely on kindness of other students, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think that's the best route, because that's sort of hit and miss, right? What if nobody's there when your person gets somewhere, your son goes somewhere? Or but Kevin had some very positive experience. One time he got stuck in the middle of the campus, pouring rain, wheelchair malfunction. And this girl stood there with an umbrella, and she refused to leave until, the public safety people got there. So there are people who chip in and do that, but I think it's better to have regular assigned, people. And so that's my input.
And I think that that's really helpful perspective, Gloria, right? Because every family is different and every guy with Duchenne is different. Taking into consideration what is the campus, how is it laid out, what resources are available or aren't, what's comfort level, how close is home. I mean, all of these different things I'm sure go into figuring out what makes the most sense. Kevin, do you want to share a little bit about your experience on campus and, navigating campus and buildings and social stuff and PCAs and all of that good stuff?
Well, I also had a single with an attached bathroom, and so it was a new dorm too. So accessibility there was fine. Like my mom said, I had assistants with me throughout the day, and they would put me to bed and then they would leave. Overnight, I wouldn't have anyone, and then they'd come in the morning to get me up. And they, walk with me to class, get the doors, get my books, whatever. In terms of friends, I got involved with a campus ministry, and so I made all my friends through that.
That's awesome. I think, Kevin and Adith, both you're speaking to the same sort of perspective of finding your people and finding your niche. And a lot of times those are lifelong friendships that can come from those types of organizations.
If I could real quick just say something about, my experience with finding PCAs. So my first 2 years of college, I had to try and hire PCAs on my own and find people through campus, simply because I wasn't eligible for a lot of, state services like Medicaid, things like that. Once Medicaid kicked in, I was able to hire through an agency, and that's what I ended up doing just because, they would find, qualified people and they would have backups for things like that. So just one thing, try and learn about the supports that are in place, like through the state, through like SSI, SSDI, Medicaid, Medicare, things like that. As early as possible. I would say it's not like, it's never too early, like even in high school, start researching that. And, you know, hopefully that will help in college. Because I will say the second 2 years, it was much easier to find PCAs. The first 2 years, it was kind of hit or miss. I would, you know, post jobs on like Craigslist, care.com, things like that, and try to figure it out that way. But yeah, and you know, those state supports also help with funding.
Yeah, Adith, that's amazing that you did that whole piece, because we worked with an agency right away. And then also Kevin had my husband and I as a backup, because we only live like 55 minutes away.
Yeah.
But for you to go to school and handle hiring and finding people, I'm just amazed. Good job.
Thank you. I had my parents' help with that, just like Kevin, and I'm sure your other two sons had your help.
Yes.
Like I had the help of my parents, and that really went a long way. It's a team effort.
Yes, definitely.
And I think a really important part of that team too is your care team, right? So your neuromuscular care team. So I wonder, Dr. Scavina, if you could talk a little bit about, from your perspective, how you support your patients, guys like Adith and Kevin, as they're getting ready to go on this college journey. You know, are there things that people can do or collaborate with their care team to help facilitate access to services or a smooth transition?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you both for giving those great, for all of you for your comments. And what I'm struck by is, you know, one size doesn't fit all. So it's very individual, and you can see two different ways of doing this. Someone having care during the day, someone at night. So know yourself and what you prefer, and then work with your team. So most clinics have a social worker, and I would ask them for their assistance. I'm going to speak a little bit from what I know in our system. We have a very good transition clinic, and that is a doctor and a social worker. And specifically in the high school years, we are asked, sometimes it happens, sometimes it slips through the cracks, but we hope to get everyone there, and they can sort of outline things that may be helpful, such as the personal care assistant, the finances, HIPAA, when you go to college, signing different forms that will either allow your parents to help if there's a medical issue, or if you don't sign it, they won't have access. So they, at least in our system and for many clinics where there's a transition group, there are specific things that at 18, you should be aware of. And so I would ask about a transition clinic, or there are tools available online and different tools PPMD has to help with transition, and college is a big part of that. And, you know, the other two things I did want to say is visiting the school. And just like anyone, you may have an idea that a school that's where I want to go. And then you get there and either you don't get that feeling that you were hoping for, or you walk around and say, this isn't really what I was thinking. And just the other day, I had a family tell me, you know, we had 3 or 4 schools, and it really helped to go and visit, to see what the layout was, to see how helpful the offices were, whether it's OVR, or is there a person there? Because having that point person can be very helpful if you get that feedback that they're going to help you. I've had situations where, as both of you have said, someone has gotten to campus a little bit sight unseen, or perhaps they've interviewed, they've gotten in, and then they said, we'll make it work, and got there and just had blocks, and maybe had to ask for a dorm or a certain building to be made more accessible. So if you can get to campus, really take a tour, get a feeling for the people, and if you see yourself there, and ask questions. And then, as Adith and Kevin are such good resources, talk to people who have been to certain campuses if possible, because they can tell you this works or this doesn't work, or I looked at that school and they're not making the changes in a manner in which will be helpful to you. So I ask people to talk to others, to visit the campuses, to talk to your social worker in clinic, your transition clinic, and then the neuromuscular people And for example, if someone would ask me certain colleges, I might say, I don't have an experience, or you know what, I had someone who went there and they really had a good experience. So talk to people as much as you can.
So that's super helpful, Dr. Scavina. And I think that raises a good question too for Maria and for Gloria. With all of these different moving parts and pieces that you have to consider, when did you start planning for college? And then what led to deciding to, Maria, in your case, have Aiden commute, and then Gloria, in your case, have your sons live on campus? So maybe Maria, you could start just by sharing, what that timeline looked like. Was it something that you gave yourself a ton of time for, or was it one of those on the fly sorts of things? Was a gap year or something that you utilized?
Well, I mean, just because personally, like Maria and planning don't typically go in the same sentence together. I am not that kind of mom or person, and I wish I was, but I'm not so much. But like I said, Aiden was my youngest, so I already had two others that went through college or were in college. And like I said, they went to the college where I teach because, like I said, it's a wonderful thing to come out of college debt free, but they also lived on campus. We live about a half hour away, which is really close, but I didn't want to see them. Like, I understood they needed their autonomy. So even though they weren't far from home, I was like, go do your thing.
Get out of here.
Yeah, sorry. And they would just hit me up when they needed money, basically. But Aiden actually did look at a different school because it was about an hour and a half away, and they had a really good animal science program there. But that would have meant it was just really, logistically, it wouldn't have worked for commuting. And he really just wanted to commute. And I have to say that like I said, with my other kids, I kind of pushed a little bit, like, you have to grow up, you have to be independent. And he wasn't comfortable with that. And so, it's been so interesting to hear just the different experience between Adith and Kevin, and Aiden's really different. We all know our sons, they all know themselves, of course, by this age, and just kind of listen to that. He would have never made it overnight without an aide, because Aiden needs to be repositioned several times through the night. And so I think, for his physical care, I think he was just really nervous about having somebody else. He has very, very limited movement left. And I think he was just very nervous about having people take care of him during the day. So I had to respect that. Like, okay, you want to commute? Fine, we'll commute. But once he was on campus, then it was obviously he made the right choice. He was able to come home and have me or my husband reposition him at night, take care of all that stuff. But when he was on campus, he was completely autonomous. Like we said, the other students would help with things. And I loved your story, Gloria, about the umbrella. Aiden had a sort of similar experience where he was going from one building to another, and it was a downpour. And his freshman orientation group, when they start in this group for the whole first year, they have just sort of this core group that they have like their freshman seminar together, and they all have like a group chat. And he just messaged the group. He's like, I have to get, across campus. It's pouring rain. I can't hold an umbrella. And some kid who was in the furthest dorm, like 3 blocks away, came running up with an umbrella and got Aiden into, across campus with the umbrella. And, I just thought that was pretty amazing. Like you guys said, people, they just want to help. We're just people. We're all, my students would help each other with anything. And the social aspect of it too, I just kind of wanted to touch on. I know you guys talked about how I love Adith. I talked to 3 people in each meeting. That's like totally something that Aiden would push himself to do. And I got to say, high school was a little rough. Aiden had a little group of friends that he sat with at lunch, and that got his lunch tray for him. But he always felt, as my older sons were really social, and I think Aiden always felt a little like he was awkward in high school and didn't have enough social interactions. And as a parent, that hurts. But college, he just blossomed. He made so many friends. I think other students in college are a little more willing to, go out of their way to include more people. And he just made so many friends. He was in a fraternity. He is in a fraternity. It's it's been just a really great experience, and it's been very different from Adith and very different from Kevin's, and your sons will probably very different from Aiden's, but it's what works for us, for him, and it's just been a great experience academically, socially. It's where he belongs, and it's been great.
That's fantastic, Maria. Gloria, maybe you could comment. I'd love to hear a little bit about what the planning process looked like for you. How early did you start, putting some of those wheels in motion to understand, whether or not the guys were going to commute or live on campus? And, what did that whole planning process look like for you?
Well, I thought it was very valuable for them to live away from home, and they had no desire to commute from home. So that was settled. We started in the spring before the fall, just even before they were admitted. We went to we talked to different colleges, and some places have amazing facilities. Like I think MIT has this underground network, so you never have to go outside. You can go to building after building just through the connecting. And so we told them, and I remember at Princeton, somebody saying, the head of the disability saying, she said, we don't let people in because of their disability. And I said, well, of course not, because I am a firm believer that you're happiest where you fit. If it's too hard or too easy, I don't think that's a good fit. But the hardest part was working with the agency. First of all, my friend said BIATA is a really good agency, so we were working with them. But just finding all the hours and putting all the pieces together. But we started with that in the summer. And then once they got admitted, met with Office of Disability, and they were very helpful. As far as, you need things like fire drills, for instance, and who's going to do what in case there is an emergency. Yeah. But I don't think you have to plan super far ahead. Maybe if you just start in the spring, it depends on the school. Like Maria, you say you didn't have an office, right? Oh, no. Adith said you didn't have a centralized place. With the university like that, you might have to start a little bit earlier.
Great. Thanks so much, Gloria. All right. I'm going to field this next question to Adith and to Kevin. So life post-college, what does that look like? Are you guys living at home? Are you living on your own? Have you decided to seek out work or volunteer? Or, what do those experiences look like for you now that you've made it through your 4 years on campus? Adith, do you want to start for us?
Yeah, sure. So like I said, I graduated pretty recently, just last year. It's in the midst of COVID and everything. And prior to COVID, I did have a job lined up that sort of fell through. But recently I was fortunate enough to get another job offer, this time with Epic, the EMR company, which I think many people here might be, based on our experience with medical, the medical field and all of that might be familiar with. So that happened a couple of months ago. And I'm actually preparing to move to Wisconsin to take that job offer pretty soon. With COVID, things were a little, difficult in terms of finding a job. But, I just applied as many places as I could. And it took a little longer than I would have liked. But in the meantime, I filled my time with volunteer work, things like that. So I did a lot more volunteer work this past year. And, I'm sort of going to take a little bit of a step back from that once I start working. But yeah, that's sort of what's in the pipeline for me for the next couple of months.
That's awesome, Adith. Thank you. I know that we at PPMD, as we think about, partnering with all of our certified care centers, we're like, ooh, maybe we can tap into Adith's epic expertise.
Oh, definitely.
All right. Kevin, what about you? What have you been up to since you graduated?
Well,
Kevin, did
I've
you
been
want to talk about Princeton, working
I've
for
been living at
Princeton?
home since I graduated. And yeah, starting out, I had like a research job at Princeton, but I was able basically to be completely remote. So just working from home. And that lasted a few years. And then I started working from my church, also all remote, unlike the website and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess both of my jobs I was able to work from home.
That's great. That's great. I know that sometimes just the commute in and of itself can be one of the hardest things. I mean, disability or no disability, commutes can be rough. So that's fantastic. And I think that that's not uncommon with a lot of guys with Duchenne who work, doing web design and IT and all kinds of really great things that you're able to do remotely, which is wonderful. My next question is for you, Maria. I'm thinking about Adith's experience and Kevin's experience and his brother's experiences and Aiden's experience. And I'm wondering, you have this really unique perspective as an instructor. How can guys with Duchenne best partner with their professors and their TAs? How can they, keep those lines of communication open to be as successful as possible? And, from your perspective as a professor, what would you want somebody with Duchenne to, share with you, or how can you, support, how can other professors be supportive of their students with disabilities?
That's a really good question, because it was weird for me to switch roles from professor to when Aiden was a student. And I honestly am not a helicopter parent. In fact, I'm kind of the opposite. I'm always like, suck it up, get up, But I have to tell you that when Aiden was in his first year of college, there were times when I wanted to I was just like, I wouldn't do it. I did not do it. But there were times when I wanted to reach out to his professors and explain things. That urge is really I think for a lot of us parents who have been caregivers for children for so many years, to switch gears and realize our sons are adults now, and it's not, we just support them. Because as a professor, I would never hear from any of my students' parents. You just don't. And so even though I knew that intellectually, to turn that part of my heart off, or my brain, to step back and be like, dude, you gotta advocate for yourself. This is your deal now. And the first year it was a transition, and now he's pro at that. But our students come to us, and I'm pretty sure most colleges are like this. If you have any sort of disability, anything from a learning disability to a physical disability, you'll get a list of accommodations that you present to your professors. And Duchenne, a lot of those things aren't, because Aiden doesn't have any cognitive or learning disabilities, but it was well, should somebody take notes for him, things like that. It was this gray area. But he really just had to kind of figure out those things himself, what could he do? And so he didn't really have formal accommodations. He did have access to a testing center if he needed extra time on tests and things like that. But a lot of it was just sort of hit or miss. And his experience has been, he doesn't take at our college, it's a 4-class course load per semester that's full-time. I know most schools are 5. Aiden's generally taken 3 per semester, and he's been able to keep up with that workload. But occasionally he has to ask for an extension on a paper. He just, at 21, sometimes his stamina isn't where he would like it to be. And I know just this past semester, he asked a professor for an extension. It was something that was due on a Friday. Can I turn this paper in on a Monday? And his professor said, sure. He's like, Aiden, do you have, because this was a remote class because of COVID, do you have a physical or intellectual disability? And Aiden said, Mom, do I have a physical disability? Like, yeah, I think that. And he couldn't, of course, ask what it was, but I was like, yeah, I think Duchenne counts as a medical condition. But when of course, I'm super understanding when I had a kid come into my class with Duchenne this semester. But I asked him as well, you know, are you taking a full-time class load? And he said, I was, you know, in the fall, but this semester I dropped a class, so I could just focus on one. So from a professor's perspective, I would say if it seemed to me, I would be happy to give extensions, you know, because like I know they need them. But if it seemed to me that I had a student, no matter what the case was, that was constantly falling behind, I would maybe say, are your other classes too much? Do you need to maybe drop a class this semester? I would highly encourage them to hit up, you know, get a tutor or visit the writing center. And I think that's important with Duchenne because just not only just the stamina, but just like the physical act of typing. I don't know if you guys, did you guys actually type or did you use like drag and dictate? Did you actually like physically type your papers and things like that when you were in college?
So I tried to type things as much as possible. For like really long papers or essays, I would use Dragon.
Okay.
But otherwise, I, you know, try to keep typing as much as possible. I try to keep using my fingers and my wrists as much as possible, just because my PhD has recommended that I do that as much as possible. And yeah, so.
My kids didn't use Dragon at all. They wrote or typed. In fact, Andrew did his, they have comprehensives, and he had to actually write everything out as his, you know, 2 or 3 hour or comprehensive exam. Yeah.
To be exhausting.
So,
yeah, that does sound exhausting.
And Kevin didn't take any less classes because engineers have to take more. They have to take actually 5 classes for 1 year before going on. So I guess we've been fortunate.
Yeah, that's what I had to do as well. 5 classes.
You're an engineer too. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow, I mean, that's really impressive. I think again, just the most important thing is just to know what works for you. If you can do 5 classes, that's amazing. If you can type, great. If you can't, you find a way to make it work. You know, and there's always a way to make it work. Like I think as a professor, I'm always super understanding, and not all professors are, but you know, talk to your professors. That's the other thing, is just be open to say, you know, this is what I need, or this is what would help me. It's all a matter of learning, I think, to advocate for yourself and know what works for you and be able to express that. And I think most times people are very willing to help out with that. Again, it's been a learning experience for us. Aiden, like I said, is a bio major, and his first year in his bio lab, like, I mean, he can't work a microscope, right? So we said, well, can he have a student aide to actually do the physical part of setting things up on the microscope? The same woman told me, I don't know if that's fair to the other students in the class. And I said, well, maybe the other students in the class have an advantage because they can move their arms. Like, I'm like, I don't understand what you're telling me. What do you mean that gives them an advantage to have somebody physically work the microscope? And she actually said to my son, which again, you try to keep that mama bear in check when your kids are adults, but she said, well, maybe you should be a biology major if you can't work the equipment in the lab. So, you know, again, but
Maria,
what?
Maria, I really sympathize with you. But again, I think schools are a little bit leery of putting anything official on another student. Unless they were there getting paid, or they're there as because let's say it's just a classmate. They have to do their own work too. Yeah.
Right. No, we asked if he could have a student assistant come into the class, like a student who wasn't a member of the class. But I mean, that's just one little example. But it's just a matter, I think, of, like I said, Aiden knew what he wanted to do, and we found a way to make it work. And just all the different voices on this panel have showed that there's no one way to make that happen. There's no one size school to make that happen, but it can absolutely happen. And there
was a young man who was mostly blind, and he was a chemistry major at Princeton. I don't know how he did that, but he managed. Yeah.
Impressive.
All right. Well, I know that we're getting near the end of the hour, and this has just been such a rich conversation. And I, quite frankly, would love to just sit here and continue to chat with you all for however long. But maybe we could go around and everybody can just offer up last thoughts, and then we'll go ahead and close out. I was hoping that we would have time to let you all ask each other some questions, but like I said, it's just been great conversation. So Adith, do you have any last thoughts that you'd like to share with the group?
Yeah, I think just to like sort of parrot what everyone has been saying throughout this whole panel, it's just a matter of knowing yourself, knowing what your needs are, and everyone's experience is going to be unique. Everyone's experience is going to be different. Everyone's going to do it a completely different way. There may be some similarities in terms of, you know, what services might be out there, what have you, but it's up to, I think, us to know ourselves, know what our needs are, and be able to advocate for our own needs, regardless of, you know, sometimes universities might see a problem with that. They might stand in the way, but it's, I think, up to us, like guys with Duchenne's and our families, to advocate and sort of figure out what it is we need to be successful.
That's fantastic, Adith. I think that that's the perfect summary. Kevin, last thoughts from you. If there was one thing that you wanted to share with everyone that's on the phone today, what would that be?
You've covered most of it. I don't know. Mom, you got anything?
I have a few things to say. These are the kind of issues that might come in your way: bad weather, aides calling out sick, equipment malfunction. I would say get to know the public safety department of your university, because they can be there to help you out in a pinch. And the other thing is make friends. Kevin has lots of close friends, and they're really spread out all over. And recently he was invited to a Zoom defense of his friend's PhD thesis. So, I mean, these friendships are what makes college worthwhile and wonderful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Gloria. Dr. Scavina, last thoughts.
Yeah, that was incredible. Just to play devil's advocate for a minute, because I have had a few kids who have gotten to campus and didn't like the experience they were having. So they were able to sort of stop, pivot, maybe take a semester off, whether they worked remotely, and then said, let me look again at something else, and found a better fit. So also being open to the idea that, and like everyone, I mean, there are people that leave after their freshman year, say this isn't the right place. So give yourself also that leeway to, if you're not comfortable or feel that that's not the best place for you to learn and to thrive, not just survive, that you may have a better choice somewhere else.
That's great, Dr. Scavina. And then Maria, we'll end with you. Last thoughts.
Well, last thoughts as an instructor. As students, please reach out to your instructors, you know, to build those relationships with your instructors. I think it's important for all students, but especially, you know, if you might have special needs in that classroom, most instructors are really happy to talk to you and get to know you as an individual. As a parent, let your kid take the lead. You know, like I said, I thought college should look like living on campus. Aiden had different thoughts, and like I said, it's weird I think like a lot of us special needs parents have been doing so much caregiving and advocating that when our kids are adults, it's hard to shut that off, but take that step back and just let your kids figure it out. Your adult kids figure it out, and whatever makes them comfortable, works for them, is great. And also to echo what Gloria said, the social, like, remember that, you know, as stressful as it might seem to figure out housing and accommodations and all that's, like, think back to your own college years. Like, it's supposed to be fun. Like, it, you know, you make friends, you get involved in stuff, you find your place in life. And so kind of just, you know, step back and let those kids have fun. And I'll just end it with the words of my third perspective is my student who has Duchenne, just finished his first year of college. He was both on campus and at home and loved it, and just said he was so scared getting started but he had a great time, and that anybody can do it.
Anybody can do it. I love it. Well, you all have been such a fun panel. This was just an amazing conversation with a lot of really great practical tips and tricks for families as they think about getting to college and living on campus or commuting or whatever makes the most sense for each individual family. So thank you to the panelists for all of your wonderful wisdom and insight on this really important topic. Thank you to all of our attendees for joining us. We hope that you found this information helpful. Please keep an eye out. We're actually going to be pushing out a resource in the coming days with some FAQs that we'll have essentially elicited from the conversation today. So if you prefer written resources, we'll have a written resource that reflects the information that was covered during this hour, along with a new resource that we're developing about interviewing caregivers and how to find a caregiver that meets your needs. So we hope that you'll find that information helpful. If you have additional resources that you think that PPMD should share with the community, send them our way. We're happy to share as much knowledge as we can so that everybody can benefit. So with that, again, I'll give one more thank you to all of our panelists and conclude today's recording. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moderating. Yep.